Thank you, Sarah. Yes, let's steady ourselves. Well, I think actually I'm remembering back to not so long ago when we were in a state of absolute turmoil with the pandemic and shut up in our houses and trying to steady ourselves. And many people found it. I remember finding it almost impossible to concentrate and to settle down and be calm. And writing was one of those things. Now, I didn't actually produce anything of, publishable quality particularly, but just paying attention, paying close attention to things near at hand, which was all we had back then. And somehow all we have now in a way to steady us. It's what's outside the door, our balconies, our potted plants, our gardens, things we might be growing and tending. I think if we can grow and tend that interior sense of creativity and connection, then that can steady ourselves amongst all the kind of terrifying horror of it. And I just have to somehow, even though I find it really difficult personally, to focus down, drop down, like John Clare said, dropping down into the natural world and paying attention to something other than myself, outside myself, and then tapping into that creativity that can produce a story or something that can be communicated and shared with another human being, a reader, a listener. That, for me, kind of centers me personally. And I think Claire and I both agree that, that's what the kind of thing we want to share with this course that we're doing.
Beautiful. Claire, do you find that idea of kind of dropping down really helpful at times of fire?
I do. Times of fire. I think that times of fire are exactly what connect me with nature the most. And I think, like Miriam, I can find nature is tremendously calming and steadying place. I walk every night. It's just part of my routine, and that kind of hour of being out and listening, observing, being open to what's around me is yeah, for my busy ADHD brain, it's a really necessary space. But I think there's also something in nature. Nature is anything but calm in so many ways. And I think that part of what I find in nature is a reflection sometimes of the grief or the tumult or the kind of bleakness that I feel inside, and finding that reflected outside of me gives me a sense of validation. To be able to notice that and write into that and make sense of that is in itself to kind of walk towards those big feelings rather than to turn my head to look for something easier. That can also, for me, be a really grounding and necessary experience. So I guess that in wild writing, part of what you're able to offer is those moments of sort of tremendous calm, the lying in the hammock, listening to the drone of the bees, but it's also the, standing in a storm on the moors, feeling, following a loss or a bereavement, and knowing that the world holds you and reflects you and makes sense of you, and vice versa, can be in itself a sort of tremendous anchoring experience.
Anchoring. I like that word very much.
Very, very anchoring. And I think I'd add that sense that nature isn't necessarily, just like Claire said, isn't necessarily a healing place, but it's a place that we can feel ourselves reflected. And I think that's Claire put it so beautifully there. where, where there is this inner turbulence or uncertainty or bleakness. And we can go through our lives feeling barren and bereft of creative spirit or focus, and yet coming together in community with lots of other faces, all writing together. We kind of lick the edge of our page and get writing together according to whatever Claire and I have suggested. And I think it's really valuable to be together in community doing that. All these different people, different minds, like this kind of swarm of bees. And I'm in a swarm of bees. I'm in a bee loud glade at the moment, which isn't all kind of gorgeous and beautiful. It's effervescent, extravagant, wasteful. There's death around me. I found hornet's nest just outside the house where I'm staying at the moment. And the kind of fear of these hornets buzzing past my ear sent my heart racing. It's not, although they're gentle souls in theory, it's not restful necessarily being in nature. But I don't know if I can show my hornet. People look
Please.
away now. We came into this house and some of the hornets from outside had been trapped. And so, here is one queen. I think it's a queen hornet. And there were more, and I just had to shut the door of the attic because one flew in. And these moments can connect us in kind of shared inspiration and ideas, and generating ideas together about how these things make us feel, because writing is about feeling as well as the sensory world that we're observing and experiencing. It's about how it makes us feel individually and collectively.
Absolutely. And we spoke a little bit about that mirroring, and this might be a bit of a whimsical way to think about it, but if nature can offer us these things as we gather together to write and explore ideas, what then do we think the natural world needs from writers right now, if anything? Claire, you can start because I knew last time.
Well, I think, first of all, it doesn't need anything from us. It doesn't give two hoots about us. Our entire species, let alone the strange and colourful niche that is writers. Nature, oh, well, we are nature. It just gets on with the business of being. But if what's needed for us to exist in a mutually comfortable relationship. Comfortable seems the wrong word given the hornet that Miriam's just shown us. I think it's one of the most central tenets of writing, which is just to notice. It's to be present, to notice, and to write it down. Now, noticing can be as simple and as tremendously complex as just looking and seeing and tasting and smelling and touching. But noticing can also kind of push further into the realms of curiosity, and that can involve reading and listening to other humans and other experiences, and imagining worlds and experiences beyond our own. So it asks us, I think what we might want of our relationship with the nature outside of us, as well as the nature within us, is to observe it, and to observe what is inside of us, and to observe what is outside of us, and to fully inhabit those observations, because they, in many ways, are the stories that we can tell best, but also to listen to what other people and what other non-human life forms have to offer us as insight into that process. And I think it's just as simple as that for me. It's the act of observing, and it's the act of writing it down and being in conversation in those ways. Everything else follows from that. Whether it's the sense of what is to be protected, whether it's the knowledge of what should or should not be done, whether it's the sense of urgency about the climate emergency, all of that will follow. And in some ways, I think one of the things that I teach over and over in writing, whatever kind of topic I'm focusing on, it's to trust the words and to trust where they lead you, and to trust yourself, and to trust your own voice, and to trust your own place in the world, to trust what you can see, and to be curious about that.
Yeah, that insight that you just mentioned, Claire, I think, I would add what nature requires or asks of us is sight, observation, and insight. So we can be looking at something, we can be paying attention to something, and we can see it and experience it, touch it, feel it, use all our senses, but also to have insight, to be present enough, to be paying enough attention to have insight into what, that flower or that bee or that piece of moss or that tardigrade in the soil, what that lichen, what that swift might want, might need, might require. Even if it's just to be left alone, we need to allow the words to come and to tell us in a relational way. We can observe, we can see, but we can also have insight. And so there's a sort of relationality which is needed. It's difficult even to personify, what the wild might need from us, because like Claire said, it's indifferent to us. Human beings will disappear after all our hoo-ha and cacophony in that brief moment of the planet's history that we've been here. What's left will recover. I mean, there were going to be winners and losers, but that's the way of things. And I think in all that indifference, nature, the wild, the creaturely world around us requires us to have insight into what's happening. And our creative endeavours that we bring to people are to sort of invite people to find their own place amongst all that. And as Claire said, trust the words. I mean, that's brilliant. Trust the words. No posturing. It's an act of radical attention that we're requiring, and that is required of us, from the roots to the leaves.